The $10 trillion housing trap. Why Wall Street wants you to rent forever. The listing went live at 9:02 a.m. By 9:20, 13 offers. By 9:31, the two-bedroom starter was gone. An all-cash bid over asking, inspection waived, closing in 10 days. The couple who toured at lunch never stood a chance. If this feels normal now, that's the story. How shelter turned into a yield machine, and why your path to ownership keeps slipping away. We'll rewind to the foreclosure wave, follow the money through algorithms and bonds, and track the policies that paved the road. The stakes are generational. Equity that compounds for some, rent that compounds for others. To see how it started, we go back. The pivot. Homes become an asset class. The pivot didn't look like a pivot at first. It looked like empty driveways and bank lockboxes. Between 2008 and 2012, foreclosures piled up faster than for sale signs could be planted. Banks weren't set up to manage tens of thousands of scattered houses. They needed to move inventory. Meanwhile, private equity and a handful of ambitious operators were doing a different kind of math. Here's what they saw. Single-family homes had always been mom-and-pop territory. Hard to scale, hard to maintain, too scattered. But after the crash, the obstacles shrank. Prices were crushed. Interest rates fell. And the supply, thousands of nearly identical houses and subdivisions, suddenly existed in bulk. If you could build the systems to manage them, the yield was steady, boring, dependable. Shelter as coupon. To understand why, we need to go back to the bank conference rooms where those pipelines formed. Servicers facing mountains of delinquent loans started bundling properties. Instead of auctioning one here, one there, they entertained portfolios. Early on, funds rented buses, literally, to tour foreclosed subdivisions. Teams carried iPads, scanning lockboxes, photographing interiors, tagging repairs, estimating rent potential. The playbook began to write itself on the fly. The Federal Housing Finance Agency ran pilot bulk sales of foreclosed homes owned by Fannie and Freddie. The stated goal was stabilizing neighborhoods, keeping properties occupied, and reducing blight. In practice, it signaled legitimacy. Institutional capital was welcome in single-family rentals. Transactions that once seemed fringe now wore a government stamp. First-time buyers, still nursing credit wounds, were no match for cash-backed portfolios and fast closes. Meanwhile, technology filled in the gaps. Work orders got routed through centralized software. Leasing became a funnel, lead scoring, digital applications, automated screenings. Maintenance teams drove routes optimized by GPS. A house in Phoenix, another in Las Vegas, a cluster in Atlanta. Suddenly they were nodes in a network, not headaches on a spreadsheet. The scattered site problem turned into a logistics problem, and logistics could be solved. Cheap capital did the heavy lifting. Zero interest rate policy and quantitative easing put a floor under asset prices and a ceiling on funding costs. A 50 to 100 basis point edge over families bidding with mortgages doesn't sound like much. At scale, it's decisive. Warehouse lines financed acquisitions. Revolvers fueled renovations. The eventual goal lurked on the horizon. Transform rents into bond-like cash flows, clip the spread, grow. Inside the boardrooms, the culture shifted. Slide decks started labeling displacement as opportunity. It wasn't snarling or cartoonish, it was clinical. Vacancy rates became a lever. Renewal rent growth a target. If a family couldn't absorb a hike, the model called that turnover, not hardship. The language insulated decision-makers from the noise of real life. On a cul-de-sac outside Riverside, a microstory unfolded that never made a slide. A family with 2 kids and a minivan was paying below-market rent after buying in 2006 and losing the house in 2001. The new landlord, an LLC with a P.O. box, offered a renewal with a 12% increase. The father asked for a month to decide. He got 5 days. They moved at night, leaving the swing set behind. 2 weeks later, a sign went up, freshly renovated, now leasing. The fence got power washed. The rent went higher. The early consolidators learned quickly. Scale meant pricing power and operating efficiency, but it also meant an expectation from lenders and investors that the income stream would behave. Homes were no longer unique shelters with idiosyncratic timelines. They were units in a portfolio. If one sat vacant, another had to compensate. If repairs exceeded budget in Dallas, renewals in Tampa needed to make the number. FHFA's bulk sales weren't the only accelerant. County auctions, short sales, direct bank deals, pipelines thickened. Realtors started getting calls from acquisition teams offering sight-unseen cash, 10-day closes, no contingencies. In zip codes with good schools, vacancy stayed low and rents crawled up. In places sliced by new job corridors, rents jumped. The system didn't need every home. It needed enough in the right grids to anchor a model. What nobody knew at the time, outside a handful of structurers, was how fast rent would become finance. By pooling leases, you could smooth the bumps and sell the stream to investors desperate for yield. But to get there, you had to first prove you could operate thousands of houses like a single asset. That meant centralization. Call centers instead of local landlords. Standardized leases, standardized fees. A house might look like a home on the outside, but inside the paperwork it became a line item. Address, rent, term, delinquency probability. For first-time buyers, the ground shifted under their feet. Appraisals started to take investor comps seriously. Inspectors were sidelined by waived contingencies. A couple with a pre-approval stared at cash-only listings and wondered when that became normal. Their agent tried escalation clauses. The other side offered certainty. Sellers took the bird in the hand. Meanwhile, demographic demand quietly strengthened the thesis. Millennials aging into family formation, constrained credit, student debt, stagnant wages. Renter demand looked sticky. If you're underwriting a 10-year plan, stickiness matters. And the suburbs where the crash hit hardest had exactly what families wanted: bedrooms, garages, yards. Ironically, the very dream that pulled people to those houses now underwrote someone else's cash flow. This was the moment everything changed because the incentives did. Treat a house like a bond, and you'll manage it like a bond. Minimize volatility. Press renewal rent. Keep vacancy within thresholds. To do that with precision, you need more than cheap money. You need data, fast, granular, predictive. You need software that can raise the rent on Maple Street and adjust a bid in the next subdivision before lunch. Scale had its own gravity. The more doors you controlled in a cluster, the more your pricing decisions set the local floor. Tenants didn't know who sat on the other end of the portal. Families sensed the new normal, but not the machinery. The pivot had clicked into place. The homes were still on their blocks, but they now lived somewhere else too. In a server, in a spreadsheet, in a bond term sheet. Cheap money, expensive homes. While portfolios were forming, the price of money went to the floor. After the crisis, rates fell and stayed low. When the pandemic hit, they fell again. For institutions, the difference between borrowing at, say, 3% versus 4% wasn't academic. It determined what they could pay and still hit their targets. A 50 to 100 basis point edge over families using mortgages turned into a bulldozer. Sellers noticed. Speed and certainty beat sentiment and contingencies. Behind each winning bid sat a stack of leverage. First came warehouse lines, short-term credit from big banks that acted like conveyor belts. Funds drew, bought houses, renovated, and leased. Once stabilized, those homes rolled into longer-term financing. Revolving credit facilities bridged gaps. The endgame was securitization. Bundle rents, slice them into tranches, and sell the cash flows to investors starved for yield. Each step pulled down the cost of capital a little more. Each step widened the gap versus a couple with a pre-approval letter. Then the pandemic rewired behavior. Rates cratered. Stimulus flooded accounts. Remote work pushed families toward space. Inventory was thin, but institutional buying power wasn't. Acquisition teams ran 7 days a week. Offers went out seconds after listings hit. Cash removed the friction of appraisals that couldn't keep up and inspections that could delay closes. For small buyers, every lost weekend felt like a pattern, not a one-off. It was. Affordability snapped. Home prices sprinted far ahead of incomes. The math that used to anchor decisions, the idea that 1/3 of your income went to housing, stopped anchoring. Rents, too, began eating larger slices of paychecks. For landlords, that was margin. For renters, it was a slow tax with compounding penalties. Late once and fees stack. Fall behind, and credit takes a hit that will make the next place more expensive. On the ground, tactics shifted. Appraisal gaps became a standard line item. We'll cover any shortfall. Inspections, waived or limited to informational only. Sellers didn't need to risk a deal falling apart over a roof. Cash closed fast and quiet. The emotional arc of home buying, tour, inspect, negotiate, plan, compressed into hours. Families couldn't compete with software that auto-filled offers while they were still at work. What nobody outside the capital stack could see was how the financing terms shaped behavior. Debt covenants expected certain returns and certain timelines. That meant vacancies needed to stay within narrow bands. Renovations needed to hit budgets. Renewal rents needed to move on schedule. If one market lagged, another had to. Overperform. The portfolio had to meet the coupon. During 2002 and 2021, the acquisition blitz became a business model, not a temporary surge. The lower the rate, the higher the price investors could justify and still clip a spread. That logic stepped into every negotiation. Pay a little more now, lock cheap debt, extract steady rent, refinance later. Meanwhile, households faced the opposite math. Low rates on paper, yes, but in practice, a bidding war, escalating offers, and an appraisal that looked backward while the market sprinted forward. There's a quiet moment that captures the new normal. A teacher and a paramedic, pre-approved and careful with debt, wrote a clean offer on a 1,500 square footer near a good elementary school. Their agent called upbeat. 30 minutes later, the listing agent texted, "Thanks for the offer. Seller accepted all cash, 10-day close." The couple asked if they could stretch. The agent said the seller didn't want to wait. The house had already become a decision on a spreadsheet. Time value, certainty premium, execution risk. As portfolios crossed the thousands, operations tightened. Rent couldn't be a guess. It had to be engineered. Revenue management software took over. Elasticity testing. Raise here, hold there, watch the leads, started to replace gut sense. If the algorithm said the market would accept a 7% renewal, the letters went out. If it said vacancy would spike at 9%, they dialed it back. Precision served the debt, and the debt served the scale. The paradox was simple. Cheap money made homes more expensive. It handed the best terms to the buyers least likely to live in the houses and asked the eventual tenants to cover the difference. Families that could have owned became long-term revenue. The dream narrowed to a lane with toll booths, application fees, pet fees, convenience fees, payment portal fees. Each small charge padded net operating income, which shored up coverage ratios, which justified the next raise. By late 2021, the pressure reached across markets. Even where institutions weren't dominant, their comps were. Appraisers looked at closing prices in nearby subdivisions and adjusted. Sellers cited nearby cash offers to justify higher asks. Agents told young buyers to waive contingencies or stay home. The edge compounded because it fed back into valuation. Rent rolls became evidence that higher prices were sustainable. Higher prices validated bigger loans. Bigger loans funded the next wave of bids. Cheap money had a clock, though. It wasn't going to run forever. But before rates rose, the habits hardened. Templates for offers, scripts for renewals, fee schedules for every interaction. The industry had turned shelter into a machine with settings, thresholds, and alarms. The next chapters would show what those settings did when the cheap money era slowed. And why, once you treat rent like a coupon, you need it to behave like one. Turning rent into bonds. Securitization 101. To understand why the offers felt unstoppable, we need to go inside the financing that made rent behave like a bond. Start with a pool. Thousands of leases spread across metros. Each lease is messy on its own. Late payments, move-outs, broken dishwashers. But together, the noise cancels. The pool produces a monthly stream. Rent in, expenses out, net operating income. Now carve that stream into slices, tranches, with different priorities. The top slice gets paid first and takes less risk. The bottom slice absorbs shocks and earns more if nothing breaks. Investors like this because it takes something local and turns it into something predictable. The structurers add cushions to make sure the math holds. Over-collateralization means the pool's expected cash flow exceeds what the bonds owe. Debt service coverage ratios have to clear a threshold, say 1.3 times, so there's room for bumps. Triggers kick in if things drift. If vacancy rises above a limit, cash that would have flowed to equity gets trapped to protect the bonds. If maintenance costs spike, distributions pause until metrics recover. It's guardrails that turn homes into paper. The incentives come locked in with the covenants. To keep coverage intact, you push net operating income higher. There are only a few levers. Minimize vacancy days, raise rents at renewal, keep delinquency low, and hold the line on non-critical repairs. Replace a roof that's leaking, sure. Replace a slightly noisy HVAC fan? Maybe not this quarter. If you can get another year out of it, the spreadsheet thanks you. The maintenance calendar becomes a yield curve. Operations adjust to serve the bond. Leasing teams get KPIs tied to days on market and achieved rent versus target. Renewal specialists are measured on acceptance rates at planned increases. Collections are routed through portals that make on-time payment the default and late payment expensive. A 5-day grace period becomes 3. A $50 late fee becomes $100 plus notice charges. It's not personal. It's coverage. The pressure shows up in small choices that roll up. A unit turns over. The system auto-generates a renovation scope: paint, flooring, fixtures. If the algorithm says stone countertops at $85 a month in this zip code, they go in. If it says they don't move rent, they don't. Leasing calendars converge on the same renewal months to smooth cash flows and reduce off-season exposure. Even lockboxes and smart thermostats are part of the design. Fewer truck rolls, more control, tighter costs. Meanwhile, investors buying the bonds don't want surprises. They want monthly remittance reports with green checkmarks, collections on plan, delinquencies within band, vacancies below threshold. If a hurricane hits a market or a factory closure spikes move-outs, the structure shifts into defense. Excess cash diverts to a reserve account. Equity stops getting paid until metrics reset. Tenants feel that shift before any investor does. Sudden fee enforcement, quicker filings, fewer discretionary yes decisions. Here's where it lands at a kitchen table. A tenant in Tampa opens a renewal notice. 15% increase. She calls the number on the portal. The rep is polite and firm. The increase aligns with current market conditions. She says she lost hours at work. The rep offers a 6-month renewal at a slightly lower rate, which keeps cash flow tighter to the calendar and avoids a vacancy during the wrong season. She asks about fixing the dishwasher that's been failing cycles. The work order is approved, but the appointment window is 3 weeks out. The bond's timeline is met. Her timeline isn't. Maximizing occupancy doesn't always mean keeping everyone. Sometimes the best move, according to the model, is churn. If you can vacate in April, renovate in 8 days, and relist at a higher rent for a June start, the annualized return beats a smaller renewal increase. The decision looks clean in rows and columns. On the ground, it's a school transfer and a new commute. Predictability requires data, so systems collect it relentlessly. Every inquiry, showing, application, and payment turns into a signal. The revenue management software runs elasticity tests at scale. Raise rents by $25 on a subset, watch lead velocity. If it holds, roll the change across the comp set. Pull back if conversions slip. Over time, a private map of willingness to pay emerges that's more current than public data and more granular than neighborhood stats. The structure also bakes in who bears risk. Insurance covers catastrophes. Interest rate hedges smooth borrowing costs. Maintenance caps are forecasted. The residual volatility sits with tenants: job loss, medical bills, car repairs. When they wobble, the fees kick first, then the notices, then the filings. The bond still expects its payment. The system is designed to make sure it gets it. Securitization isn't a villain by itself, it's a tool. But once you turn shelter into a stream of payments promised to someone far away, the human flexibility that used to exist gets squeezed. Your landlord doesn't live down the block and decide to give you 2 extra weeks because they saw your kids bike on the porch. Your landlord is a servicing waterfall. The rules are clear. The calendar is strict. The rent is a coupon, and coupons must be clipped. Algorithms at the door, pricing and bidding systems. Once rent becomes a coupon, you need a metronome to keep it on beat. That metronome is software. Revenue management tools watch every click, call, tour, and deposit like telemetry from a machine. They set asking rents in real time, not with a landlord's gut, but with tests. Raise by $15 on one street, hold on the next, measure how many leads convert, then roll the result across the zip code. The system learns the exact price where prospects stop ghosting and start paying. Meanwhile, something else is happening in the acquisition lane. Bulk bidding bots sit behind buyer accounts, scraping new listings the second they hit. The bots pull comps, estimate a renovation scope from public photos, and push an offer before a family has time to schedule a showing. If 3 institutions chase the same starter in a good school district, the bots escalate in lockstep within preset guardrails. Max price, no contingencies, 10-day close. A human signs off, but the decision is made before lunch. The speed is the point. The iBuyer playbook didn't disappear, it morphed. Where flipping margins thinned, the algorithm switched to hold to rent. Homes that failed a quick resale funnel became feeders for long-term portfolios. Instant offers gave a pipeline without open houses. A seller clicks accept. A truck shows up, and the house is inside the portfolio's pricing grid by the weekend. With enough volume, the grid starts to look like a private map of a city's willingness to pay. Private rent comps matter more than the public ones because they're fresh. Public data lags by months. The platform knows renewals accepted yesterday and tours scheduled this morning. When one landlord raises renewals 6% and sees no pushback, that result informs the next email across town. Vendors and data partners aggregate anonymous stats that rhyme with antitrust concerns. Not an explicit agreement, but a shared rhythm. Parallel conduct looks like coordination when everyone's reading the same dashboard. From a tenant's perspective, the effect is eerie. In one Atlanta neighborhood, renewal letters land within days with nearly identical increases. 7.25, 7.5%. The wording changes, the number doesn't. Friends compare notes and realize they're on the same calendar. A leasing agent shrugs. It's the system. She's not wrong. The software is designed to converge on the price that meets the bond's coverage without tipping vacancy. Too low, and you leave money on the table. Too high, and you trigger an empty house. The algorithm threads the needle. Elasticity testing happens quietly. The platform marks a handful of homes as test units, raises asking rent by $40, and watches inquiry velocity. If leads hold for 24 hours, the higher rent goes portfolio-wide. If they dip below a threshold, the system backs off. Over weeks, the algorithm nudges a market into a new normal. Even independent landlords end up following because the comps shift. The floor lifts, and every lease floats with it. Bidding software plays a similar game on the buy side. It assigns a probability that a cash offer at X% over list with a 10-day close will be accepted based on neighborhood history and agent behavior scraped from past sales. If the probability clears the hurdle, the bot sends the offer, often with proof of funds attached. It also inserts escalation clauses automatically, not because emotion says we love the house, but because the model says a $12,000 bump keeps the IRR intact at current rent projections. The family with a pre-approval letter is now negotiating against a spreadsheet tuned to a bond. There's a human cost to precision. A nurse in Phoenix gets a renewal with a 9% hike. She asks if there's wiggle room. The portal offers a choice. Accept the increase for 12 months, or opt for a 6-month lease with a 12% premium that ends exactly in May, the highest demand start month. That timing reduces off-season risk for the bond. For her, it compresses choices around a school calendar and a commute. Critics call out antitrust risk, especially when multiple big landlords share a revenue management vendor. The defense is standard: no explicit agreements, independent decisions, dynamic markets. Enforcement agencies worry about information exchange that hardens price paths, even without a phone call. In practice, the question is simple. When the same tool feeds inputs and outputs across the largest players, does competition look like a chorus singing the same note? Now zoom out to neighborhoods. When a platform controls a cluster, the algorithm can set the local anchor. New listings aim just above last month's achieved rent. Renewals hug that anchor. Vacancies are pushed toward peak seasons. Maintenance schedules steer to protect cash flow during bond reporting windows. And because fees count as revenue, the system tests those too. Pet rent up $15, application fee non-refundable, convenience charge for online payments that are the only option advertised. You don't see the code, you feel its cadence. Tour windows narrow. Offers expire in hours. Renewal notices batch. Rent increases land in the same week. The machine isn't trying to be cruel. It's trying to be right on time. And when precision wins the market, a home stops being negotiated between people and starts being tuned by a model that never sleeps. The monopoly map, markets chosen to be owned. While algorithms tightened pricing, a quieter choice shaped everything: where to plant flags. Not every metro made sense. The map skewed sunward, Carolinas to Texas to Arizona, where laws favored landlords, job growth fed demand, and new subdivisions offered uniformity. Warmer climates meant fewer weather shocks. Courts moved faster on evictions. Property taxes were predictable enough to underwrite. Yield spread beat the coasts without the politics of old cities. Inside strategy decks, the Sunbelt wasn't a vibe, it was a checklist. Start with metros adding jobs and highways. Layer in counties with quick permitting and lots of HOAs, because HOAs impose standards that make maintenance cheaper. Then cut the grid by school ratings, commute time to new employment nodes, proximity to hospitals and distribution centers. The map lit up in clusters, not dots, northwest of Atlanta, north of Charlotte, east of Phoenix, swaths around Dallas and Houston. Own enough doors within a 20-minute service radius and truck rolls shrink, vendor pricing improves, and a rent increase in one subdivision quietly becomes the comp next door. Zip codes got their own yield tiers. A-rated schools and cul-de-sacs offered low vacancy and steady rent bumps. Call it the bond tier. B-tier delivered more volatility, but higher growth if you could manage churn. C-tier looked tempting on spreadsheets. Cheap houses, big percentage jumps, but operations ate the spread. More repairs, more skips, more legal work. The winners concentrated where variance was lowest and predictability highest. Then came build to rent. If scattered acquisitions were the starter kit, purpose-built rental neighborhoods were the control room. Builders partnered with funds to deliver entire blocks at once. Same floor plans, same fixtures, same warranties. Streets curving just enough to feel like a place, but engineered for turnover. Wide driveways for quick turns, minimal landscaping to reduce crews, standardized appliances for bulk purchasing. Leasing offices replaced front porches as the center of the community. It worked like clockwork. Pre-lease 30%, deliver in waves, stabilize on schedule. The trade-off sat beneath the lawns. Traditional subdivisions mixed long-term owners who show up at PDA meetings with a share of renters. Build-to-rent enclaves flipped that script. People stayed a year or two, then moved. Coaches rotated. Neighborhood Facebook groups became customer support forums. When potholes appeared, residents filed tickets with a portal, not a city council member. The social fabric thinned, not because people didn't care, but because the model didn't reward roots. Local capture followed scale. HOAs negotiated bulk vendor contracts the landlord controlled. Landscaping, pest control, pool maintenance, one approved provider, one check, a markup folded into rent as community fee. Zoning hearings turned into playbooks. When a subdivision shifted from for sale to rental, teams arrived with traffic studies and school impact analyses that framed the project as relief for housing shortages. Opponents warned about absentee ownership. The counter was steady occupancy and professional management. The approvals came more often than not. In cities like Charlotte, vendor lock-ins stretched beyond neighborhoods. One maintenance firm handled thousands of work orders across a metro, which meant faster response on paper, but also less incentive to negotiate price. In Phoenix, a plumbing company carved its business into routes that mirrored a single landlord's footprint. If you lived on that map, your options narrowed to the vendor in the app. Externalities landed in classrooms and on roads. Schools near dense SFR clusters saw churn spike each summer, teachers reintroducing the room to itself every August. Meanwhile, morning traffic thickened on feeder roads designed for a slower growth era. Police calls rose in a few pockets as turnover intersected with thin staffing. None of this was catastrophic, but it was cumulative. Lots of small stressors that no slide deck needed to model because they didn't hit net operating income directly. There's a microstory that explains how policy greased this path. A suburb outside Jacksonville weighed a tax abatement for a build-to-rent project pitched as workforce housing. The deal cut property taxes for years. The promise was supply and speed. The subdivision filled quickly with nurses, warehouse workers, and teachers. But when renewal season hit, rents jumped to market, and the workforce piece felt more like branding than a covenant. Locals trying to buy nearby discovered the starter floor had moved. Appraisers pointed to rents that supported value. Value supported more debt. Debt funded the next build. Meanwhile, algorithms guided expansion like GPS climate risk models flagged floodplains and fire corridors to avoid insurable shocks. Insurance premiums rose in coastal zones, nudging capital inland to drier tracks with the same school ratings and better wind maps. The monopoly map wasn't a villain's sketch, it was an optimization surface. But when optimization meets housing, The winners live inside a maintenance schedule and a price curve. Owners are rarer, routes are thinner, and the market starts to look less like a place and more like a platform. Policy capture and the hidden subsidy stack. While maps were being drawn, the rulebook tilted. Not in one vote or one headline, but in a stack of quiet advantages that made the model safer, cheaper, and faster for institutions than for families. Taxes, pensions, disclosures, fees, each layer nudged the same way. Start with the tax code. A landlord deducts mortgage interest. A homeowner does too, until the standard deduction makes itemizing pointless. Landlords also depreciate the structure over years, even as the market price climbs. Cost segregation lets them accelerate that depreciation by carving a house into components, appliances, fixtures, even carpet, with shorter schedules. The result is paper losses that shelter real rent. When a portfolio is sold, a 1031 exchange can roll gains into a new acquisition and defer taxes again. Families don't get that latter. They get a capital gains exclusion on a primary home, sure, but only when they own one. Public money sits in the stack too. Pension funds, endowments, and even some municipal treasuries became limited partners in SFR funds seeking stable, inflation-hedged income. Teachers' retirements and firefighters' pensions ended up underwriting rent increases paid by teachers and firefighters. The irony isn't a slogan, it's a line item. Commitments flowed because bonds yielded so little. Real estate promised a spread. Consultants wrote memos about diversification and downside protection. Nobody at the investment committee meeting had to explain a renewal letter in plain language. Legacy programs added momentum. During the foreclosure era, bulk sales from agencies were billed as neighborhood stabilization. Years later, the legal and operational scaffolding remained. Standardized contracts, due diligence frameworks, policy comfort with scale. When eviction moratoria arrived in the pandemic, carve-outs and implementation gaps varied by state, and large operators with legal teams navigated them smoothly. Small landlords and tenants sat in crowded dockets or confused phone trees. Process is a subsidy when the rules reward those who can afford patience and counsel. Pass-throughs became normalized. A bill arrives with rent on one line and a column of extras. Utility admin fee, valet trash, smart lock subscription, pest prevention, convenience fee for online payments, the only method supported. Water and sewer get billed at a group rate plus an allocation formula that always seems to round up. City infrastructure charges that used to sit in property tax show up as utility recovery. Each dollar climbs to net operating income, which props up debt coverage, which greases securitization. When regulators cap rent, the fees grow teeth. Insurance and appraisals reinforced each other. Insurers priced climate and crime risk block by block. Premiums rose in certain corridors, pushing owners to raise rents or exit. Appraisers, asked to justify fast-rising prices, pointed to stabilized rent rolls from institutional comps. Income supports value. Value justified bigger loans. Bigger loans needed bigger NOI. The spiral held even in places where wages lagged because the underwriting model looked at rent history, not household budgets. If the portfolio across town achieved $2,000, the valuation assumed yours could too. At City Hall, the same trade-offs replayed. A developer pitched a build-to-rent project with a property tax abatement. More supply, faster delivery, workforce branding. The city wanted units on the ground. The covenant on affordability, if it existed, was thin short windows, narrow income bands, easy outs. The subdivision opened. Nurses and warehouse workers moved in. Year 2, renewals landed at market. The abatement kept the pro forma whole. Nearby families looking to buy found prices justified by those rents. The subsidy didn't lower housing costs, it raised asset values. In state houses, industry groups pressed for uniformity. Standardized eviction timelines, limits on local rent controls, preemption of municipal fee caps, consistency sells as efficiency. For operators spanning counties, it's priceless. A patchwork of rules is expensive, a clean map is bankable. Tenant advocates, under-resourced, fought piecemeal. Meanwhile, disclosure rules around who owns what lagged. Beneficial ownership hid behind LLCs stacked 3 high. If a tenant wanted to escalate a code problem, they met a registered agent, not a person. Transparency isn't free, opacity is cheap. There's a micro-story from San Antonio. A city council eager to revitalize a shopping corridor approved a tax increment reinvestment zone, and later greenlit a build-to-rent project within it. The developer's packet promised attainable rents and community amenities. Waivers reduced fees, and property taxes were rebated for a period. The homes leased fast. The second renewal cycle aligned with bond reporting season. Increases hit double digits. A teacher couple tried to buy a nearby fixer. Their lender flagged comps supported by those rents. The appraisal came in high. Their down payment target moved again. The subsidy stack isn't only about what's given, it's about what's tolerated. Late fees that exceed cost. Application screenings that charge per adult per property. Non-refundable holding deposits. Mandatory liability insurance sold through an affiliated provider with a markup. Each element looks small in isolation. Together, they're policy by omission, a set of permissions that in aggregate transfer power. When critics say the market did this, they miss the scaffolding. Markets sit inside rules. We wrote rules that make it easier to turn homes into yield and harder to turn rent into equity. We chose depreciation schedules, exchange deferrals, disclosure gaps, and fee gray zones. We invited public money to chase private gain in the very neighborhoods that public money struggled to stabilize. Tailwinds fail if tenants can't pay. That's where wages and credit enter, because the system doesn't slow down for a paycheck that didn't rise. It finds new ways to collect. The debt trap, wages, credit, and the illusion of choice. Pressure doesn't just come from rent. It comes from paychecks that didn't keep up. Over the last decade, wages crawled while housing sprinted. Households learned to bridge the gap with plastic and promises, credit cards, buy now, pay later, payday advances, installment plans for furniture and phones. The month still had 30 or 31 days. The bills multiplied. Here's how it lands on a Tuesday night. A childcare worker in Charlotte makes dinner, opens her renewal, and sees an 8% increase. Her hours haven't changed. Gas is higher. Groceries take more. She checks savings thin. She puts the deposit on a credit card and hopes overtime will cover the difference. The late fee from last month sits in the portal like a small bruise. It compounds next week if she misses again. Rent-to-income ratios used to anchor around a third. In many metros, they've blown past that. 40% isn't rare. 50 shows up. The budget flexes the only place it can. Healthcare visits get pushed. A car repair waits. The dentist becomes a painkiller. When a kid's asthma flares, the urgent care copay goes on a card with a 24% APR. The minimum payment is manageable until it isn't. Credit props up the shortfall, but the props charge rent too. Buy now, pay later splits a couch into 4 easy payments and hides in plain sight. It doesn't look like debt because the app feels friendly. Payday loans turn $300 into $375 in 2 weeks. When the next check arrives, it's already smaller. The overdraft fee that was supposed to be last resort becomes a subscription. The bank earns. The landlord earns. The household bleeds. Landlords see the wobble in dashboards, slight uptick in delinquencies, more partial payments, more calls to collections. The response is procedural. Tighten grace periods. Enforce late fees. Offer payment plans that align with bond calendars. A hardship option may exist, but it's narrow. Proof of job loss, a defined window, a signed addendum. Flexibility doesn't scale when coverage must. There's a micro-story from Indianapolis. A warehouse worker misses rent by 3 days after his transmission fails. The late fee posts, plus a notice delivery charge. He calls to explain. The rep posts a payment plan with a $25 setup fee and a clause that voids it if a single installment lands after 5 p.m. on the due date. He makes the first 2, then a shift change throws off timing. The plan cancels. Filing fees get added. The bond is safe. He isn't. Fees don't just sting, they echo. A missed rent becomes a collection entry. A collection dings a credit score. The ding lifts insurance premiums and future security deposits. It can raise utility deposits too, because those companies increasingly use credit-based pricing. Housing costs rise because a past housing cost couldn't be met once. The loop tightens. Some tenants take on roommates to hold the line. Others downsize mid-lease and pay a releasing fee for the privilege. Families move farther out, trading rent for gas and time. Commutes stretch. Kids switch schools. The social cost isn't on the ledger, but it shows up in classrooms and clinics. Teachers relearn names every fall. Counselors see the churn in attendance. Pediatricians watch stress seep into sleep and behavior. Meanwhile, the market sells choice. Want to avoid the 11% increase? Sign a shorter lease at a higher monthly, ending in peak season. Want a lower deposit? Pay a monthly deposit waiver. Don't like the pet fee? Try a pet screening that routes you to a slightly different fee. The options look like escape hatches. They're revenue products. The illusion is control. Wage growth hasn't vanished. In pockets, it's decent, but it arrives unevenly and lags costs. When raises do come, they meet prices already reset by algorithms and comps. Tenants feel like they're sprinting on a moving walkway, going the wrong direction. Any traction becomes a temporary reprieve. The intergenerational math is harsher. The years when many households used to build savings, late 20s, early 30s, now get swallowed by rent and debt service. Down payments drift out of reach. Student loans compound the drag. When kids arrive later, or not at all, it's not just preference, it's cash flow. Families that do buy often need gifts from parents. Those without that support rent longer, then pay more over a lifetime. Equity begets equity. Rent begets rent. Credit tries to bridge mobility and makes it heavier instead. A family in Las Vegas eyes a cheaper suburb. The landlord offers to let them break the lease for a relisting fee, prorated concessions repayment, and rent until a new tenant signs. They stay, pay the hike, and cut childcare hours. Grandparents pick up slack. The household bends around a spreadsheet. Defenders say the market is offering what people want: flexibility, amenities, professional management. Sometimes that's true, but look closely at the choices. Many are pay more now or pay more later. The floor keeps rising either way. Just move sounds simple until geography turns financial. New job nodes sit where the portfolio clusters. Transit is thin. Schools that fit a child's needs are anchored to specific zones. When wages lag and credit props waver, the illusion of choice reveals itself. Doors exist, they're toll gates, and each toll funds the very system that raised it. The geography of no escape. When the rent eats the raise and the fees swallow the rest, the obvious advice is move. But move where? Remote work briefly cracked geography open. Families left expensive cores for cheaper rings, trading elevators for garages. Landlords followed them. As Zoom leases spread, capital mapped the same arbitrage and bought ahead of the convoy. By the time a family arrived, the cheap had already been repriced. Employers saw it too. After the first wave, many clawed back location gains. Return to office didn't mean 5 days for everyone, but it meant a gravity pull back toward job nodes. Hybrid schedules favored drivable distance. Suburbs within 45 minutes of a major campus became pressure cookers. The exact places families fled to became the places they had to remain within. That narrowed the escape routes to a handful of corridors that institutions already owned. Secondary cities were sold as relief valves. Boise, Spokane, Chattanooga, Tulsa, Huntsville, good airports, livable neighborhoods, new breweries, and cheaper homes. Migration spilled in, often from higher income senders. Price floors rose because the new arrivals could pay more. Investors noticed the gap between local wages and newcomer budgets and bridged it with cash. A duplex that rented for $1,100 went to $1,450, then $1,650. The comps hardened. Locals earning $18 an hour watched the ground tilt under their feet without moving an inch. Then short-term rentals carved out chunks of the starter stock. A 3-bed that would have housed a family turned into 3-night bookings with a keypad. Regulation was patchwork. Some cities capped permits, others punted. Where rules were soft, supply for long-term tenants shrank. Where rules were strict, capital rerouted to nearby towns just outside the ordinance line. Either way, the starter tier thinned. In tourist corridors, young teachers and service workers stacked roommates or drove an hour. Build more is still the necessary answer, but the where and the how matter. Zoning that forbids duplexes and fourplexes inside leafy neighborhoods keeps production at the edges. Permitting delays stretch projects by months, then years. Pre-approved plans and by-right ADUs help, but they don't arrive overnight, and they don't backfill the block of ranches bought in bulk last spring. Missing middle reforms inch through hearings while bond calendars keep moving. Insurance costs redrew maps in the background. Carriers raised premiums or exited entire zip codes after wildfires, floods, or hail clusters. For owners, higher insurance rolls straight into rents. For buyers, it raises the monthly nut that lenders underwrite. Markets didn't crash, they sorted. Capital drifted from coastlines and canyons into inland ridges and high ground with the same school ratings and lower loss histories. Tenants followed jobs and safety. The portfolio got drier and hotter. So did rent. There's a week in Central Florida that explains the trap. A hurricane skirts a metro, power blinks, shingles lift. Insurers file for rate hikes. 6 months later, premiums spike across. Counties. Large landlords push through $40 rent increases citing rising insurance. Small landlords sell rather than reprice. Institutions by the exits, insured at scale. Families who thought they could swap a 12% renewal for a cheaper place find the new place went up too, for the same reason. Transit could have widened options. In most metros, it didn't. Buses run thin. Rail lines stop short. A cheaper apartment 20 miles away becomes 2 cars, more gas, and an extra hour a day. Employers offering location pay adjusters claw them back when the office badge counts rise. The raises that were supposed to equalize remote work vanish, while the rents set during that era remain. Meanwhile, climate risk models started showing up inside underwriting, nudging bids away from floodplains and toward resilient tracts. Those tracts often overlap with historic investment, stronger schools, better drainage, newer infrastructure. Rent rises there because capital concentrates there. Households that can't pay for resilience pay in other ways. Longer drives, shakier grids, higher insurance deductibles, more time watching weather apps and wondering if this storm is the one that finally cancels their lease by force. Find the Next City became a cottage industry. Newsletters flagged small metros with growth stories and affordable charts. The migration wave would hit, then the investor wave, then the policy talk. By the time a family loaded a U-Haul, the future was already priced into the exit ramp. It wasn't a conspiracy, it was speed. Data doesn't wait for word of mouth. When search volume ticked up, offers did too. There's a micro-story from Nashville's Ring. A medical assistant and a line cook tried to move 30 minutes out to save $250 a month. By lease signing, an institutional landlord outbid them for the same house and listed it at their target plus $150, bundled with amenities. They stayed put and took extra shifts. The savings plan moved to next year. Geography used to be choice. Now it's a funnel. The top is wide, maps, listings, options. The bottom narrows to where the jobs are, where the schools work, where the insurance underwrites, where the algorithm says demand will clear. Just move becomes move inside the lines. And the lines were drawn by the same model that raised the rent where you started. Stress tests, when rates rise. The machine was built on cheap fuel. Then the price of fuel jumped. When interest rates rose, the quiet edge that let institutions outbid families thinned. Acquisition models that cleared at 3% debt stumbled at 6%. The bots still scraped listings, but the guardrails tightened. Offers dropped, contingencies crept back in, and pay anything to win gave way to only if it pencils. Higher rates flipped cost advantages in 2 ways. First, borrowing costs pushed cap rates up, which meant the same rent supported a lower price. Second, sellers still anchored to yesterday's comps. The spread compressed. Funds paused deals that no longer hit return hurdles. But pausing purchases didn't mean easing pressure on tenants. To protect coverage ratios on existing debt, operations squeezed the levers they controlled: renewals, fees, and expenses. Behind the scenes sat maturity walls, chunks of securitized debt and credit facilities coming due. Refinancing at higher rates threatened the math. If a pool had been underwritten at a comfortable debt service coverage ratio, the new coupon cut that cushion. Bond indentures didn't care about headlines, they cared about tests. If coverage fell below thresholds, triggers would trap cash, starving equity. The way to avoid that was straightforward: raise NOI fast. That's when the distress playbook came out. Service levels trimmed. Non-emergency repairs slid a month. Landscaping cycles got longer. Call centers nudged tenants toward portal solutions. Renewal letters leaned harder, with fewer exceptions. Eviction filings rose where law allowed. Ancillary fees multiplied. Benefits packages, trash valet, smart lock subscriptions. Each small charge inched coverage back up. Tenants felt the shift first, long before any investor call mentioned tightening operations. In Dallas, a tenant opened a renewal to find an 11% bump and a new technology fee. She called to contest both. The rep offered a lower increase paired with a shorter term, ending neatly in peak season. The dishwasher that had limped for months slipped down the maintenance queue. The property hit its monthly numbers. The bond met its test. The household rearranged groceries and overtime. Refinance risk pushed some owners to sell non-core clusters. A few thousand homes in scattered markets hit the block, often brokered quietly to other institutions. Small landlords hoped for a fire sale. Instead, portfolios traded to buyers with fresh, if pricier, credit lines. Where buyers didn't appear, listings leaked into the open market. Families sensed opportunity, then ran into higher mortgage rates and tighter underwriting. The monthly payment on a discounted house still beat their budget. The latter lowered an inch and rose a foot. Securitized covenants enforced the cadence. Remittance reports flagged delinquencies, vacancies, and expenses against covenants. If a metric drifted, cash that would have flowed to equity diverted to reserves. Managers who missed targets answered to trustees. The pressure rolled downhill. Leasing teams were told to hit the number. Maintenance was reminded to prioritize ROI. Collections was graded on days sales outstanding. Nobody wrote "be less human," but the result felt that way. There's a landlord's view worth holding for a beat. In Phoenix, a portfolio faced a refinance at rates double the original. The CFO ran scenarios: sell 10% of homes to reduce leverage, raise renewals 8%, cut capex by 15%, increase fees, and tighten late policy. The model balanced at coverage 1.28. The alternative: sell more houses faster, risked price slippage and operational drag. The choice wasn't villainy. It was arithmetic. But arithmetic has casualties. Pain cascaded in a sequence. Tenants absorbed the first wave: higher renewals, stricter fees, quicker filings. Some moved, paying releasing penalties or relocation costs. Next came small landlords, many with adjustable rate loans or expiring short-term debt. Their payments jumped, reserves ran thin, a roof leak pushed them to list. Institutions with dry powder bought selectively, keeping clusters intact. Bondholders, protected by structure, felt stress last, often cushioned by cash traps and priority claims. Meanwhile, markets without heavy institutional presence didn't escape. Rising rates froze would-be sellers with low mortgages in place, starving supply. The homes that did list still drew investor comps into appraisals. Families waited for a crash that refused to arrive. Prices bent, not broke. Rents plateaued briefly in some metros, then edged up again as insurance, taxes, and utilities climbed. Owners passed through costs. Where caps existed on rent, fees did the lifting. In Atlanta's suburbs, a tenant asked for a month-to-month extension after a layoff. The portal offered one, at a 15% premium and mandatory resident package. She took it, bought time, and found a lower-paying job. By the time she secured a 12-month lease elsewhere, her savings were gone. Her credit carried 2 late fees from the transition. The new landlord screening dinged her score. The deposit doubled. Rates rising hadn't just changed asset pricing. They had multiplied friction in a life. Some hoped higher rates would humble the model. In parts, they did. Acquisition slowed. Build-to-rent starts paused. Promoters stopped promising endless growth. But the machine didn't switch off. It shifted modes. Less buying, more extracting. Less expansion, more optimization. And because the logic of bonds and covenants doesn't reverse with the Fed's plot, the urgency to make plan didn't ease. It intensified. Even in stress, supply arrived, built years ago, now delivering. Those homes didn't land for sale. They slotted into rent rolls designed to absorb rate shocks with occupancy and fees. The storm passed over bondholders mostly intact. It lingered over kitchens where budgets had already been sanded to the wood. Build-to-rent America. Even as acquisitions slowed, a different supply line turned on like a tap. Builders and funds started speaking the same language: certainty. For a builder, nothing beats selling an entire subdivision in one handshake. No model home weekends, no contingent offers, no busted appraisals. For a fund, nothing beats new product engineered for low maintenance and synchronized cash flow. The handshake became a pipeline. Streets rolled out, lots poured, and entire neighborhoods were pre-leased before the first mailbox went in. Why builders like blocks wasn't mysterious. Banks lend easier when absorption risk is off the table. A purchase and sale agreement with a deep-pocketed buyer looks like insurance. Construction draws flow without hiccups. Crews move house to house with the same spec sheet, same cabinets, same flooring, same appliance package, shaving minutes that add up to margin. Instead of praying that buyers trickle in each month, a builder hits milestones and invoices. Cash arrives on schedule. Inventory risk leaves the site. For the funds, these were dream assets. Scattered site portfolios were a logistics exercise. Build-to-rent neighborhoods were a system. Every driveway wide enough for a quick turn. Every water heater the same model for bulk warranties. Every HVAC filter the same size stacked in a warehouse. Even the mailboxes matched to cut down on claims. A service truck could clear a street in an afternoon. Leasing calendars could be orchestrated to land renewals in March through June. Vacancy smoothed, costs shaved, graphs calmed. Walk those streets and you'll feel the design. There's a clubhouse with Wi-Fi and a coffee urn, a pool with minimal landscaping, a dog park with composite fencing that never needs paint. Front porches exist but sit shallow. The real interaction is in the app. Need something? File a ticket. Want to talk to a neighbor? There's a forum, moderated by staff, that doubles as customer support. The HOA isn't a group of owners in a folding chair meeting. It's a line on your rent statement branded as an amenity package. It's not that people don't enjoy living there. Many do. The homes are clean, the streets are quiet, and the grass stays trimmed without a Saturday spent pushing a mower. Nurses, warehouse supervisors, teachers, junior engineers. Households that want a yard and a garage without the down payment find a decent life. Kids ride scooters around a loop. Amazon vans come and go. The problem isn't comfort. It's direction. These neighborhoods are optimized for turnover, not stewardship. Lease terms funnel towards summer end dates. Renewal prices are set by an algorithm, not a neighborly talk. If you coach soccer, you might be gone next season. If you want to plant a tree, it needs to be on the approved list. And if you move, the next tenant might remove it with management's blessing. The ground feels rented because it is. Attachment becomes a subscription, renewed 12 months at a time. Accountability thins as well. In a subdivision of owners, a broken streetlight sparks emails to a council member. In Build to Rent, it's a ticket that may sit if it doesn't touch safety KPIs. Trash pickup gets standardized to a valet bin at the curb, billed monthly. If pickup misses, you're routed to a vendor, not a vote. When a school boundary shifts, families churn en masse because lease timing and district maps don't line up. The land remembers less because fewer people stay long enough to gather the memory. The economics pull that way on purpose. A neighborhood with fewer unknowns is a better bond. Standardization tightens expense forecasting. Turnover in the right months props occupancy. Fees for community benefits pad NOI. Even social events, food trucks on Thursdays, a holiday photo booth in the clubhouse, are scheduled to lift satisfaction scores right before renewal pushes. Community becomes a retention lever. There's a story from north of Houston. A build-to-rent project. Marketed itself as ownership-ready, with homes designed to convert to for sale later. Residents loved the idea. Then the financing closed in a structure that rewarded stable rent, not sales. The conversion window slid. Renewal season arrived with 8 to 10% asks. A teacher couple that hoped to buy the place they'd painted and furnished learned that ownership-ready meant the floor plan could sell someday. Not to them, not now. They signed a 6-month renewal and watched a listing 2 streets oversell in 3 days for a price their lender couldn't meet. Builders didn't betray anyone. They followed incentives. Municipalities hungry for units counted these as housing delivered. The ribbon cuttings came on time. Infrastructure fees got paid. The catch showed up later when the ownership ladder needed a first rung. A starter home used to be a 1,400 square foot ranch with scuffed floors and a mortgage rate you could argue down on a Wednesday. Now it's a near-identical home across a private street, leased at a premium, with rent increases set by software and no path to equity. Watch the culture shift in the small talk. Parents at the playground compare renewal letters, not interest rates. Friends trade tips on fee waivers, not local lenders. Grandparents ask when the lease is up, not when closing is. Owning becomes something you schedule for later, then later again. And when enough people live this way long enough, it starts to feel normal to never plant roots. That isn't a glitch. It's the model. The ownership kill chain. Buying used to start with a number you could reach. Now it starts with math that pushes your hands off the ladder. Prices climbed, wages lagged, and the entry ticket moved from savings to luck. Down payments used to be 5 to 10% and a few months of scraping. Today, in many metros, it's years. Student loans siphon what used to become cash reserves. Private mortgage insurance tax on a monthly penalty if you haven't crossed the 20% threshold. The first link in the chain is simple. If you can't stack the cash, you rent while you try. Renting makes stacking slower. The second link sits in the comps. Investor purchases at higher prices reset appraisals. When the house next door sells to a fund at an all-cash premium, the new value lands in your loan file. FHA and VA buyers, who bring lower down payments and rely on standard appraisals, get boxed out when the appraisal gap opens. Sellers hear FHA and think delays and repairs. They hear cash and think certainty. Certainty wins. Speed is the third link. Cash offers with waived inspections and gap coverage clear in days. A couple with a 780 credit score and steady W2S can't compress underwriting to 10 days, even with a great lender. They can't skip the appraisal. They shouldn't skip the inspection. The game rewards whoever can say yes without conditions. That's rarely the household sleeping on an air mattress to save for closing costs. Then there's the rate lock-in that turns owners into sitters. Millions refinanced into 2s and 3s. They'd consider selling, but trading a $1,700 payment for $2,700 on a smaller house makes no sense. Inventory freezes. Listings trickle. Prices don't crash because supply doesn't surge. The few homes that do hit the market draw the same hungry pool. The ladder's first rung stays high and far apart from the second. Psychology shifts under this pressure. A home starts to feel like a subscription. Predictable payments, app-based service, renewals instead of mortgages. People who could own wait for the perfect down payment, the perfect rate, the perfect time. That time slides while rents edge up. The longer you rent, the more normal renting feels. The model prefers that. Your savings become the landlord's equity. The kill chain also runs through rules. Appraisal standards lean conservative, just when prices sprint. Repairs requested by FHA or VA buyers. Peeling paint, handrails, minor safety items. Spook sellers who don't want to renegotiate. Meanwhile, as is cash waives everything. The friction that's supposed to protect buyers becomes a reason to ignore them. Protections invert into barriers when the other side doesn't need them. There's a micro-story from Raleigh. Two teachers with pristine credit offered list price plus an escalation clause on a 3-bed ranch. They wrote a heartfelt letter, then learned letters were barred to avoid fair housing issues. The winning bid was a corporate LLC, sight unseen, with 5-day due diligence and a 20% deposit. The sellers took the bird in hand. The teachers toured another place. It went the same way. After 4 losses, they renewed their lease at a higher rent because their kids' school zone was non-negotiable. Fees make the slope steeper. Closing costs climb with points to buy down rates. Insurance premiums jump in certain zip codes. Property taxes reset on sale, not on rent, but landlords price those hikes into rent anyway, lifting the floor. That buyers have to beat. If you save $20,000, the market raises the bar by $20,000 while you're saving. The treadmill speeds up as you get tired. Bulk buyers change the seller's mindset. A single offer with no contingencies and 1 inspection from a portfolio team beats 6 individual families asking for time. Some builders now pre-commit blocks to institutional buyers before opening weekend. The model home buzz is theater. The absorption is already sold. The starter home you would have bought is spoken for. You can lease one across the street. Credit scoring plays a quiet role. Miss 1 rent during a job change, and a collection shows up. Your score dips. Your mortgage rate tier worsens. That quarter-point difference adds hundreds per year, which pushes affordability just out of reach again. Meanwhile, your on-time rent history often doesn't count toward your mortgage file unless you jump through hoops. The system records your stumbles, not your stride. Some try to hack the chain. Co-buying with friends, down payment assistance with strings, credit union programs that average appraisals, community land trusts that split land from structure. These work, but the windows are small and the wait lists long. Where they exist, they prove a point. Redesign the rules and ownership turns back from luxury to path. Leave the rules as they are, and the chain does its work. The last link is cultural. When parents stop saying, when you buy, and start saying, if you buy, the expectation fades. When employers assume mobility every few years, the logic of owning weakens. When neighborhoods flip to build to rent, a starter becomes a product tier, not a stepping stone. We've taught a generation to treat shelter like a service. The spreadsheet approves. The balance sheet grows. The ladder is still on the wall. It's just behind a locked gate. Who profits? The capital stack and the winners. Follow the money from the front door to the back office, and you'll see who gets paid, when and why. At the top sit the owners of scale, public REITs, private equity platforms, large asset managers with permanent capital vehicles. Their business isn't a handful of houses, it's systems. They earn two ways: on rent and on the spread between their cost of capital and the yield they squeeze out. When valuations rise, they also mark up the portfolio and refinance, pulling cash without selling. That's not a windfall. It's the model. Below them are the limited partners, the quiet money. Public pensions, university endowments, charitable foundations, sovereign wealth funds. They supply the bulk of the equity because they need steady, inflation-linked income. Consultants pitch core plus residential as ballast in a choppy market. The pitch works. Contributions fund acquisitions, renovations, and the working capital that carries houses from vacant to leased. The LPs don't set renewal policy. They approve fund strategy and read quarterly letters that show coverage ratios, occupancy, and IRR. The beneficiaries, retirees, students, citizens, rarely connect their check to a renewal notice somewhere else. Debt providers stand beside them, shaping outcomes with term sheets. Big banks extend warehouse lines and revolvers that finance acquisitions and turns. Insurance companies and debt funds write term loans. The securitization market buys bonds backed by rent, taking senior slices with first claim on cash. In exchange, they demand covenants and triggers that enforce discipline. If operations slip, they trap cash and reorder priorities. Lenders don't own houses, they own rules. And rules travel faster than compassion. Then come the market makers, the ecosystem that turns housing into a platform. Brokerages now run institutional sales teams that source off-market deals and package scattered homes into neat clusters. Builders create for-rent verticals to design neighborhoods for funds. Mortgage companies spin up lines to finance rental portfolios rather than home buyers. Appraisal firms build income-based templates that justify higher values on stabilized rent, not comparable sales. Everyone takes a fee. The fees stack into price. The service spine is PropTech. Revenue management vendors price renewals. Data companies sell portfolio intelligence built from application and leasing funnels. Screening firms monetize background checks. Payment processors clip every rent transaction, then add convenience, charges the landlord passes through. Smart home providers sell locks and thermostats with recurring device fees. Maintenance platforms route work orders to approved vendors and skim a percentage. The landlord's P&L improves. The PropTech company books SaaS revenue. Tenants pay for both. Insurers are winners too, even when they complain about claims. Master policies at scale generate premiums. Some landlords require tenant liability policies purchased through an affiliate, low loss, steady margin. Title companies close bulk deals with discounted rates that still dwarf a retail closing. Law firms standardize filings and compliance across counties, turning eviction and code enforcement into process. The more routinized it gets, the better the margin. Now track the feedback loop. Higher achieved rent lifts net operating income. NOI supports a higher valuation at a given cap rate. The higher valuation allows a bigger refinance. The refinance pays back equity or funds new acquisitions. The portfolio grows. With more scale, the operator negotiates lower vendor costs and executes faster, which improves margins again. Each turn makes the next easier to finance and harder to compete against. Families feel this as a rising floor. Investors see it as compounding. Small players clip pieces too. Real estate agents earn both sides of a bulk deal. Contractors land steady work outfitting dozens of turns a month. Local governments take impact fees and celebrate ribbon cuttings. But the power sits with whoever controls the cost of capital and the throughput of data. That's the moat. Owning 50 homes is a hustle. Owning 50,000 is an operating system. Winners aren't only domestic. Sovereign wealth funds and foreign asset managers place capital into joint ventures that target Sunbelt clusters. Their mandates prize long-duration income. U.S. tax and legal frameworks welcome them. The rent paid by a nurse in Tampa helps fund a pensioner in Oslo or a scholarship in Toronto. That's not an indictment, it's a description. Global liquidity found America's starter homes and asked them to act like bonds. Who loses? Not always, not everywhere, but predictably. Households priced out of ownership, small landlords facing rate shocks, cities absorbing churn costs without line items to match. Even when tenants like their homes, they pay for a balance sheet they don't own. The spread between what they could have paid to a mortgage and what they do pay to a landlord widens with every fee and every renewal. The capital stack didn't appear out of nowhere. We built it with tax rules that favor depreciation, with disclosure that hides beneficial owners, with credit systems that ignore on-time rent but punish a single miss, with public money that chases private yield because safe bonds don't pay. When those pieces align, the winners are those closest to the hinge points: cost of capital, data advantage, and regulatory clarity. If you want to see change, watch those hinges. Shift the cost of capital advantage. Break the data monopoly. Rewrite the rules that let fees masquerade as rent. Because as long as the stack looks like this, the winners are baked in, and the rent check keeps climbing the ladder past your mailbox to a ledger you'll never read. Playbook case studies, city-level impacts. While the capital stack hums, cities feel the footprint in patterns you can walk. Start in Atlanta, where the foreclosure era left thousands of single-family homes in limbo. Bulk buyers stitched together clusters west and south of the perimeter, then up into fast-growing suburbs. Eviction filings surged in certain tracts, not because tenants were uniquely unreliable, but because portfolio policy standardized filings after tight grace windows. School counselors in Clayton County described Augusts that felt like reboots. New faces, new stories, same addresses as last year with different names on the mailbox. Meanwhile, achieved rents rose faster than local wage medians. Neighborhoods that once offered a path to equity became places where down payments drifted out of reach because appraisals leaned on stabilized rent rolls. Charlotte showed the same playbook with cleaner seams. The north and west arcs, filled with HOA-heavy subdivisions, let operators run maintenance at scale. A homeowner who once negotiated directly with a neighbor's handyman now clicked a portal tied to a single vendor. Eviction rates tracked renewal pushes, peaking when portfolios leaned into coverage targets. Families trying to buy in University City and Steel Creek found investor comps pulling list prices above FHA comfort. A teacher couple with a pre-approval lost 3 times to cash that waived inspections and closed in days. They renewed their lease and watched their target house become a rental across the street, offered at their old mortgage estimate plus a community fee. Jacksonville told the build-to-rent chapter loudly. Entire blocks near new logistics nodes flipped from for sale to pre-leased rentals. The ribbon cuttings promised attainable living. Year 2, renewals landed at market, and attainable meant last year's price. City staff liked the unit counts. Teachers and warehouse crews did too, until the second letter. Resale comps down the road leaned on those stabilized rents, nudging starter prices beyond what VA and FHA loans could clear without appraisal gaps. The latter's first rung receded while the subdivision's dog park stayed immaculate. Head west to Phoenix and Las Vegas, where the iBuyer funnel became a pipeline. Homes that didn't flip easily rolled into hold-to-rent portfolios. Price volatility ran hotter, rents didn't. In Phoenix's West Valley, a nurse who'd hoped to buy in 2021 watched her target house move from instant offer to institutional rental in a week. Renewal algorithms later synchronized hikes across zip codes. When rates rose and acquisitions slowed, fee stacks grew instead: technology charges, valet trash, pet screening. In Las Vegas, whole streets turned over within a year, driven by pandemic moves then snapped up by funds looking for standardized product. What looked like recovery felt like replacement. Dallas and Houston demonstrated vendor monopolies in practice. In Frisco and Katy, maintenance routes mapped to a single firm handling thousands of work orders, negotiated at portfolio scale. Response times were faster on average, but price leverage ran one way. HOAs aligned with landlord preferences, approving landscaping and exterior rules that reduced cost variance. When insurance premiums jumped after storms, landlords pushed through $30 to $50 rent bumps citing pass-through clauses. Small landlords sold, often to the same portfolios, and the vendor map expanded. The Midwest was supposed to be the refuge. Columbus, Indianapolis, Nashville's ring, all pitched as affordable with room to breathe. Capital heard the pitch too. Investor share rose from a small base, and wage-to-rent gaps tightened. In Indianapolis, a warehouse worker's missed payment turned into a cascade of fees and a filing, even as his neighborhood's median asking rent jumped $200 in a year. In Columbus, starter tri-levels near Intel's planned campus drew cash offers anticipating future demand. Locals earning $22 an hour learned what Sunbelt families already knew. The floor moves before your pay does. Zoom in on microstreets. In South DeKalb County, 3 adjacent rentals received renewal notices within 48 hours. 7.25, 7.5, and 7.75%. Different companies, same vendor for revenue management. Tenants compared screenshots. The conversation shifted from "why me?" to "how did they all pick the same number?" In Mesa, a family asked for a 2-month extension to align with school. The portal offered one at a steep premium, ending neatly in May. The landlord's calendar won. The family paid twice, once in money, once in stress. Cities tried responses. Atlanta considered data transparency for large landlords. Ownership registries, fee disclosures, standardized maintenance SLAs. Charlotte explored first-look windows for resident buyers in targeted tracks, pre-qualifying FHA/VA deals to speed closings. Phoenix debated short-term rental caps to free stock. Lawsuits followed. Dallas flirted with junk. Fee limits, state preemption loomed. Houston, without zoning, leaned on deed restrictions and utility leverage, only to watch workarounds appear. Not every outcome was bleak. In Jacksonville, a nonprofit partnered with a builder to carve 30 homes from a build-to-rent tract into a community land trust, fixing resale formulas that kept prices within reach. In Indianapolis, a credit union piloted a rent reporting program that lifted scores, shaving mortgage rates for graduates who bought. In Charlotte, a right of first refusal ordinance at one apartment complex slowed a bulk sale long enough for a tenant association to secure a preservation deal. Small footholds, not floodgates. The through line across cities wasn't villainy. It was velocity plus structure. Algorithms set cadence. Securitization set guardrails. Policy set the slope. Where rules favored speed and opacity, portfolios expanded and prices synced. Where rules forced daylight, on fees, on ownership, on first look, the script bent. City by city, the question became whether homes would remain places to plant or products to optimize. The answer showed up not in speeches, but in renewal letters, vendor lists, and the names on school rosters in September. Global lens, financialized housing abroad. To see what's choice and what's design, look outside the US. The same pressures show up, but the rules twist the outcomes. Start in the UK. Right to buy sold millions of council homes to tenants starting in the 198s. It sounded like empowerment. Over time, a big slice of that stock migrated to private landlords, often leveraged on interest-only buy-to-let mortgages. When rates were low, the model printed money. Rents rose, tax relief sweetened the carry, and small empires formed street by street. Then rates climbed, and landlords rushed to reprice or exit. Build-to-rent arrived as institutional balm. Polished blocks with amenities, professional management, predictable lease-ups. Families who once would have lived in council semis now rent in branded towers. The irony, public homes turned private, then got financialized again, this time with pension money and service menus. Policy levers tightened late, stamp duty surcharges on investors, phased mortgage interest relief cuts. But the core scarcity remained, especially in London where planning delays and greenbelt politics kept supply thin. The result looks familiar: rent burdens up, ownership down, and a generation timing life to renewal dates. Cross the Atlantic to Canada. Investor share rose fast through the 201s, fueled by cheap credit, immigration-driven demand, and tight zoning in big metros. Toronto and Vancouver became case studies in how global capital plus constrained supply pushes prices beyond local wages. The federal government toggled levers, stress tests to cool demand, foreign buyer taxes, vacant home levies, then a foreign buyer ban with exemptions. Provinces tried rent controls with vacancy decontrol loopholes. Institutions grew a build-to-rent pitch, secure income in immigration hubs, while small investors leaned on interest-only HELOC strategies. The measures cooled edges, but didn't cure scarcity. Municipal permitting slowness and single-family zoning near transit held back the missing middle that could have relieved price pressure. A condo presale pipeline fed rentals indirectly, but maintenance and fee shocks later hit tenants when strata budgets rose. The lesson wasn't that taxes don't work. It was that demand breaks without broad supply, and tenure reform just shifts heat to another room. Germany shows a different path, and its limits. Tenancy law liens pro tenant. Indefinite leases as default. Justified cause required for termination. Rent increases bound by indexes and local reference tables. After private equity roll-ups in Berlin sparked rent spikes and visible decay, protests turned into ballots. Berlin tried a rent freeze. Courts struck it down for exceeding state authority. The anger stayed. A non-binding referendum favored expropriating large corporate landlords. National politics softened some edges. Caps on new rent increases in tight markets, broker fee reforms, energy retrofit rules. Yet investment didn't vanish. It rechanneled into new build and into markets with steadier governance. Tenants there still face pressure, energy costs, modernization surcharges, but the baseline rights cushion shocks. The trade-off: slower production in some places, more legal friction, but fewer eviction whiplashes and less fee gaming because statutes close common loopholes. Then Singapore, an outlier by design. More than 80% live in public housing built and managed by the Housing and Development Board. Flats are leasehold, heavily subsidized on first purchase, and allocated through income-linked rules. Buyers build equity, but within quotas that preserve ethnic balance and social mix. Resale markets exist under constraints. Speculative flipping is limited. There's private housing, and it's pricey, but the median household can still own an HDB flat with predictable costs. Land policy, long-term state ownership, and centralized planning do the heavy lifting. It's not easily copy-paste for every country, but it proves a point. If you treat shelter as an essential good and plan at scale, you can keep ownership broad while limiting financialization's grip. Australia and New Zealand offer a mirror with sharper angles. Negative gearing and capital gains tax discounts turn property into a national savings plan. Investors bid against first-time buyers using tax-advantaged losses and equity from prior gains. Renters faced tight vacancies and rising renewals. Reforms flickered, tightened credit underwriting, macroprudential tools, stamp duty tweaks, but the core incentives endured. Build to rent is now pitched as an institutional solution to a problem policy helped create. Without zoning liberalization near jobs and transit, and without changing investor tax advantages, the pressure keeps migrating from price to rent to fees. What works across borders isn't one magic lever. It's a bundle. Strong tenant rights that set floors under people without freezing new supply entirely. Zoning that invites missing middle production inside job-rich neighborhoods. Public or social housing that scale, not scrap, built continuously so downturns don't erase capacity. Demand-side breaks that target speculation rather than first-time buyers. Transparency that shows who owns what, and disclosure that drags fee stacks into daylight. And financing that rewards long-hold stewardship. Whether through tax credits for converting rentals to limited equity ownership, or lower capital charges for mission-driven landlords. What fails is whiplash. Rent caps without production plans. Investor taxes without unlocking land. Deregulation without tenant safeguards. Subsidies that juice demand into the same bottleneck. And opacity, always opacity, which lets coordination hide in market data and lets beneficial owners disappear into shell stacks. The world didn't converge by accident. Capital flows to where rules let homes behave like bonds. Countries that bent the rules the other way kept more doors on hinges, not in spreadsheets. The choice remains policy, not fate. Deeper mechanics, algorithms, data, and antitrust. The rent hikes didn't line up by magic. They lined up because software treated neighborhoods like test beds. Revenue management systems ran elasticity experiments at scale. Raise renewal quotes 5% for a slice of tenants, 7% for another, hold flat for a control, then watch accept rates. The model learned fast. If a 7% push landed with minimal move-outs in a submarket, that became the new floor. If it backfired, the system dialed back next cycle. One property couldn't safely run those tests. A portfolio of 20,000 homes could, then propagate the winner everywhere. Shadow pricing amplified the effect. A leasing agent opened a screen and saw not just their recommended rate, but competing listings scraped and normalized. The software nudged them to sit just under the median or equal to plus fees included. When multiple operators used the same vendor, those nudges moved in parallel. Nobody sat in a room agreeing to raise rents on Tuesday. But Tuesday's settings rhymed across town because the inputs and objectives matched, and the tool fed on a shared stream of data. That stream wasn't public. Private rent comps, actual signed leases, renewal acceptances, concessions given flowed back to vendors through APIs. The system learned which households accepted pet fees, which zip codes tolerated technology packages, and which seasons could bear 60-day notice hikes. It built willingness to pay profiles that felt like price discovery, but behaved like coordination. If one firm proved a market would absorb $2,050 for a 3-bed with a smart lock and trash valet, the recommendation engine tipped others toward $2,045 plus a convenience fee. A gap closed without a single phone call. Elasticity testing bled into timing. The calendar mattered as much as the price. Renewal windows were staggered to land expirations in peak months. Offers arrived 75, 60, then 45 days out with escalating incentives to accept early. Each tier logged, each response feeding the next model update. Move-out fees, prorated concession clawbacks, and month-to-month premiums shaped choices without sounding like price. The algorithm didn't need to be mean. It needed to be consistent. From the tenant's side, the effect was eerie. In Charlotte, 3 neighbors compared renewal emails. Identical phrasing, different companies, same dates, same ranges. In Phoenix, a week of new listings all ended $5 apart after limited-time specials, with add-on fees that matched down to the admin line. Tenants wondered if there was a group chat. There wasn't. There was a shared vendor playbook and data loops that rewarded conformity. Inside leasing teams, the human role narrowed. Agents got scorecards, quote compliance, renewal capture, discount leakage. Deviating from the recommended rate required approval. Neighborhood knowledge, seeded to dashboards. A veteran agent in Dallas said the quiet part. My job went from reading people to following prompts. The prompts came from a revenue manager 2 states away, reading heat maps of accept rates and loss factors. Then there's the antitrust angle. Traditional price fixing needs an agreement. Modern enforcement wrestles with parallel conduct enabled by shared information and common algorithms. If competing landlords feed non-public lease data to the same vendor and receive pricing recommendations that converge, is that collusion or just efficiency? Regulators can ask for logs, code, and communications, but the signal hides in the structure. Shared inputs, identical objectives, and market power concentrated in software with few alternatives. Data moats deepen it. Vendors offer discounts if clients contribute full-funnel data, applications, denials, fraud flags, tour conversions. In exchange, clients get sharper market intelligence. Switch vendors, and you lose the history that trains your models. Stay, and your competitor's performance improves your guidance too. It's a prisoner's dilemma with rent checks as collateral. Even operators who dislike the optics keep the feed because the quarterly numbers depend on it. Antitrust law does have hooks. Information exchange can violate rules when it's granular, timely, and competitively sensitive. But enforcement capacity is thin, and housing markets are local. Case building is slow. Meanwhile, the tech stack races. Cross-portfolio signals jump from single-family to multifamily and back via data partners. Screening firms share risk scores that correlate with income volatility and move-out propensity, indirectly shaping who gets quoted what and when. The line between underwriting and price discrimination blurs. At the tenant level, coordination shows up as synchronized friction. Fees align. Renewal windows align. Best and final listing days align. When one firm pilots a resident benefits package, uptake data helps others adopt it with fewer stumbles. When another tests a grace period cut, lost data quantifies the trade. What used to be a messy patchwork of landlord behavior becomes a smooth surface of policy, updated quarterly. There's a micro-story from Tampa. A nurse negotiating a 5% renewal cited maintenance delays. The agent said they needed pricing approval. The approval came back with a 12-month at 4.5% or a 6-month at 2% higher monthly, ending in June. She asked if the manager could adjust. The answer referenced market alignment, then listed 3 nearby comps at nearly identical rates. 2 were managed by firms using the same pricing vendor. None showed fees up front. She took the 12-month and set a calendar alert for 74 days out next year. The tech isn't evil. It's accurate about incentives. That's the problem when incentives ignore people. Software optimizes toward the metric you choose. Choose NOI stability, and it will discover ways to extract it. Choose long-term tenure and equitable access, and it would learn different moves. But those aren't the metrics the bonds reward. Policy sets the field. Force daylight, on ownership, on non-rent fees, on the data behind recommendations, and you blunt the edge of silent coordination. Limit the granularity and timeliness of shared competitive data, and you slow convergence. Encourage or require rent reporting to credit bureaus, and tenants carry something out of the exchange besides a receipt. Without that, the algorithm keeps training on a loop it wrote, and the market keeps mistaking sync for truth. Policy choices. What works, what backfires. We've traced the machine. Now set the field differently. Policy can slow extraction, speed production, and reopen an ownership lane if it aligns levers instead of pitting them against each other. Start with supply where it matters. Upzoning that actually touches job-rich neighborhoods works. Minneapolis scrapped single-family-only zoning citywide. Early evidence shows more small-scale projects on formerly locked blocks. Portland paired missing middle reform with pre-approved plans and fee waivers for fourplexes tied to moderate income price caps. The lesson isn't slogans, it's details, by-right approvals, predictable timelines, and standard designs that let small builders move without a lawyer at every step. What backfires is headline streamlining that leaves discretionary reviews intact. If a project can die in a hearing 3 months in capital prices that risk and pick safer ground. ADUs help when they're truly by-right, with ministerial permits and utility hookups that don't cost the price of a car. Fee holidays, alley lot fixes, and small grants to low and middle-income owners turn policy into keys. What fails is an ADU law with parking poison pills and 6-month plan checks that deter everyone but the most persistent. Demand-side lanes can protect the first rung if they favor resident buyers. First-look windows, 14 to 30 days where only owner-occupants can bid, give FHA and VA loans a chance to clear. Pair that with appraisal modernization that allows income comps only when selling to investors, not when evaluating an owner-occupant deal. Down payment assistance works best when it's targeted to median earners, layered with counseling, and portable across listings. What backfires is broad tax credits that juice bids into the same bottleneck, or DPA programs that require sellers to accept extra contingencies without compensating them for time risk. Anti-aggregation tools are blunt, but useful when scalpel rules fail. Caps on institutional ownership by census-tract or school zone reduce monoculture. Rights of first refusal for tenants or community land trusts when portfolios trade give neighborhoods a seat at the table. Montreal's preemption tool let the city step into certain deals. The U.S. equivalents are emerging in Boston and Minneapolis. These work when funded and targeted. They fail when unfunded, or when written so broadly that portfolios route around them into the next suburb. Transparency sounds soft. It isn't. Beneficial ownership registries that tie an address to a controlling entity cut through LLC stacks. Public fee schedules that force landlords to disclose all non-rent charges before application, pull junk fees into daylight. Bond disclosure that identifies which securitized pools own which clusters lets city halls spot stress before filing surge. What backfires is partial transparency, publishing owner of record names without linking them, or requiring fee lists without enforcement, which just teaches firms to rename line items. Tenant protections that focus on predictability beat blanket freezes. Limit late fees to cost plus modest margin, outlaw convenience, upcharges on required payment methods, and standardized grace periods. Require maintenance service level agreements with rent escrow when deadlines lapse. Give tenants renewal notices at least 90 days out, with caps on mid-lease add-on fees. These rules reduce surprise and lower eviction whiplash. Pure rent caps without supply plans and carve-outs for rehab often backfire, pushing landlords to reprice via fees or exit small buildings that then flip to higher rent formats. On the tech front, aim at the data pipes. Prohibit the sharing of real-time, property-level lease and renewal data among competitors through third-party vendors. Require a 60 to 90-day lag in aggregation to a level that blunts coordination. Mandate disclosure when pricing recommendations come from an algorithm trained on competitor data. Encourage alternative vendors that optimize for tenure and resident stability. Incentivize through lower taxes or insurance credits when portfolios meet long tenure metrics. What backfires is performative bans that operators sidestep by consulting reports, or rules that kneecap small landlords using basic software while leaving enterprise systems untouched. Insurance and taxes can be tuned. Offer premium discounts for landlords who harden homes against climate risks and commit to fair renewal practices. Tie property tax abatements to measurable affordability outcomes. Rent caps tied to local income, not market, and claw them back if targets miss. What backfires are blanket abatements for build-to-rent with no tenant protections, which lift land values and set higher comps for would-be owners. Public and social housing needs to be continuous, not crisis only. Land banks should move foreclosures to community land trusts and limited equity co-ops with rehab financing, not auction to the highest bidder. Cities that keep a rolling pipeline of mixed-income, permanently affordable units, Vienna-style ambitions scaled to local budgets, retain skills and contractors through cycles. What fails are one-off bonds that build a few thousand units and then go dark for a decade, dissolving capacity. Finally, convert rent into credit. Require rent reporting to major bureaus by landlords above a threshold and subsidize reporting for small owners. Let that data count in mortgage underwriting by default. Cap application fees and ban per property screening charges within 30 days, so families aren't paying to be denied 5 times. These are small hinges with big arcs. What backfires is credit building that's opt-in, buried in portals, or monetized as a benefit tenants must pay for. None of this is glamorous. It's plumbing. But the machine you're fighting is plumbing too: flows, valves, meters. Align the incentives, close the loopholes, and slow the extraction while speeding the path to a deed. Navigating the trap, practical moves for viewers. We can't wait for perfect policy. You've got decisions this renewal cycle. Start with the lease you have. 90 to 120 days before expiration, ask, politely in writing, for your renewal options. Don't wait for the portal. Cite your on-time record, note any unresolved maintenance, and propose a specific number. Offers beat outrage. If the quote comes back high, counter with a 12-month at a smaller increase or a longer term, 15 or 18 months, at today's rate. Operators prize certainty. Trade length for price. Audit fees. List every non-rent charge, tech, trash, pest, valet, benefits, billing, and request the posted schedule. If any fee isn't in the lease or violates state caps, ask for removal. If rent is capped but fees aren't, ask to convert mandatory packages into opt-ins. Document maintenance delays. If your lease includes service windows or habitability standards, reference them with dates and ticket numbers when negotiating. Written paper trails when more than phone calls. Timing matters. Renewal pushes are fiercest in peak season. If you can shift your end date into the off-peak with a short extension or a slightly longer term, that small calendar move can shave points off the ask. If you need flexibility for a job or school change, negotiate a fixed break fee schedule now rather than a surprise liquidated damages later. Predictability lowers stress and cost. Shop early and widely. Create a shared spreadsheet of alternatives with total monthly cost, rent plus every fee, utility estimate, parking, insurance. Many listings hide fees. Ask for the all-in. Compare across owners, not just properties. Smaller landlords may offer more room to negotiate. Larger ones may give lower base rent, but stack charges. Ask both for rent reporting to credit bureaus. If they don't, use a third-party service that verifies payment via your bank and landlord. That turns each month into credit history you can carry into a mortgage file. If moving, reduce application burn. Many states allow only one screening fee within 30 days for the same landlord or management firm. Use it. Reuse portable tenant screening where legal. Bundle applications with proof of income, ID, references, and a short cover note. Speed signals reliability. If denied for credit thinness, offer a higher security deposit or a co-signer rather than accepting a monthly risk fee. A one-time deposit beats a permanent surcharge. Think geography like an investor. Map where institutional ownership is lighter. Older inner-ring neighborhoods with mixed stock, small multifamily pockets, towns just beyond the big portfolio's service radiuses. Early mover windows appear before a submarket hits the newsletters. Look for places with stable employers, modest insurance, functional schools, and permitting momentum. Councils passing missing middle or ADU reforms. Talk to local lenders and credit unions. They know which streets are turning and which are priced on hype. If you want ownership, widen the lane. Credit unions often run low-down, portfolio loans with flexible appraisals. They care about members and neighborhoods. Ask about programs that average comps or allow repairs in escrow so FHA/VA doesn't scare sellers. Pair with reputable down payment assistance that records as a silent second rather than inflating your monthly. Get pre-underwritten, not just pre-qualified, so you can close faster without waiving protection. Write clean offers. Fewer contingencies, shorter inspection windows, and a clear escalation cap. Consider co-buying. Set rules on paper. Exit options, buyout formulas, maintenance reserves, and dispute resolution. Use a lawyer and a shared account for expenses. House hacking reduces the note. Buy a duplex or fourplex, live in one, rent the others. FHA 3.5% down can work up to 4 units if you occupy. An ADU, where legal, turns yard into income or family space that lowers childcare stress. Manufactured homes. On owned land, small multifamily, or a condo with sound HOA finances can be a step, not a sentence. If ownership is still distant, collect equity differently. Max your employer match. Pay off 20 to 30% APR debt before chasing extra rent reductions. High interest is a fire. Build a 3-month renter's reserve to absorb renewals and emergencies. Automate transfers the morning after payday. If you want to hedge against the rent machine, consider indirect exposure, REITs or housing-adjacent indexes. So part of your rent's logic returns as dividends. That's not a substitute for a deed, but it's a buffer. Leverage workplace power. Relocation stipends, commuter benefits, and remote work adjustments can be negotiated, especially if you quantify your productivity and replacement costs. If your firm is hiring, argue for satellite days near where staff actually live. Small schedule changes open cheaper submarkets without quitting. Use public tools. Join waitlists for land trusts, limited equity co-ops, and shared equity pilot programs early. They move slow, then fast. Sign up for first look alerts in cities that have them. Register for homebuyer classes tied to reputable DPAs. They unlock programs and improve your underwriting story. If your city has a right to counsel or eviction defense hotline, save the number. If not, compile legal aid contacts now, not when a notice hits your door. Organize hyperlocal. Tenants in the same subdivision who compare renewal letters have leverage. Share screenshots. Coordinated asks. Longer terms, transparent fees, rent reporting get escalated differently than solo pleas. Keep it factual, not hostile. When owners see churn risk in clusters, they trade rate for stability. Finally, pace yourself. The system is fast. Your moves need to be steady. Pick 2 actions this week. Request your renewal options early and pull a free credit report to scrub errors. In a month, tour 3 lenders, including a credit union. In a quarter, build 1 month of rent in reserve. Small steps compound, just like the machine's fees do. Make your compounding deliberate. The meaning of home, culture, community, and the middle class. Home teaches belonging. Ownership anchors school ties, favors, watchful eyes, and the slow trust that makes neighborhoods safe. Subscription living resets that clock yearly. When streets churn, PDA benches empty, block captains fade, and kids lose mentors. Equity once built cushions. Without it, setbacks ripple into debt, delay, and drift. Resolution and meaning. Financializing shelter hollows the middle. Fewer roots, thinner safety nets, colder streets. If this helped, subscribe. Watch the next episode where we test concrete fixes. Zoning that actually builds, tenant rules that prevent junk fees, and ownership ladders that work, modeled on real cities to see what moves the needle now.